All right, good morning. I hope the test went well.
It went so well. It was so much easier than the other ones, in my opinion.
All right, good job. Yeah, some sent me a message saying that you didn't win it, and some were frustrated because you made a careless mistake. Remember, you're humans, so I haven't looked at the scores yet. But congratulations on getting a good grade if you did. I am submitting grades today. So these first quarter grades, they do not go on the transcript. They're more or less just a wake-up call to get on the ball if you're not. I'll be honest with you, what I'm seeing with the grades, seeing like high B's or F's. I'm not seeing anything in between at all. So what's happening is students are either engaged coming to class, doing assignments, doing well on the exams, doing the problem, or students are just not doing anything. So I don't see really any grades that are in between. I think I mentioned before, I do realize you like your teammates in the Math Wizard teams, but they are going to change as soon as I have time, maybe this weekend. They will change because I want to give you the opportunity that other great people in the class. So I want to give you the opportunity to meet other people who you'll like just as well. You can always work with whoever you want in the Math Wizard teams. They're open all day and all night. So if you wanted to work together at 9 o'clock at night or 12 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whatever, you can go into those Math Wizard teams with groups of people if you want. So those are always open. Yesterday, I was a little frustrated because now that we're going back and forth from the Math Wizard teams to WebEx, just have the Math Wizard teams open at your tab at the top. It's taking too long for students to get into the teams, and I don't like it. It shouldn't take 5 or 10 minutes for people to get into the teams. So I want to be able to, give you a problem, go to the teams, come back, go to the teams, come back. And so just have the tab open so you're not having to search for waste time, getting into the teams, because there were 3 people yesterday in pre-cal that I marked absent because it took them so long to get in there. And I just happened to check in. You're there now, after 10 or 15 minutes. So anyhow, have the tabs open for the Math Wizard teams and get in there as quickly as possible and get started. And then one more thing about the exams. I've had a couple of comments lately with people want me to check problems. I don't mind checking problems, but let me tell you what I don't like. When you put a certain answer on the exam and you put a different answer on your scratch paper, like for example, let's say on the exam you put +1 and on the scratch paper you put -1. I feel like, you have 2 opportunities to get the right answer. So you have to give me the right answer. You know what I mean? It's not fair to put 1 on the test and a -1 on your scratch paper and hope it's one of the 2 answers. So that's just not fair. And so please don't ask me to look at things like that. I will this time, but your scratch paper must match your exam answers. Okay, you can't just put both answers and hope I'm going to give you credit, for both. So yeah, you have to put the right answers. Okay. So that's it, I think. You took the 3-point exam this morning. I'm going to take questions on lesson 3.3. We're going to actually work in the Math Wizard team today on the review of 3.3. So, but before we do that, I want to take questions on lesson 3.3. So basically, we were, in the shallow end, and in lesson 3.3, we're jumping right into the deep end. And they're requiring all kinds of things from you. They're requiring that you know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. They're requiring that you know how to simplify radicals. Almost everything we've covered so far, except for transformations, they're requiring in these problems. So anyhow, does anybody want to ask me any questions about 3.3? All right, well, I'm going to give you a couple tips then. Take a look at page 147, number 8. What you want to notice about page 147, number 8, you want to notice all those negatives. And they're asking you, if you turn back, it's asking you to solve by completing the square. Well, remember, you cannot complete the square with a number other than 1. So even a negative isn't, it's not going to work. So you're going to have to multiply that equation through by a -1 and make sure you have a fish that's a positive 1. Okay, I think the other questions are on the review. Okay, last call. Anybody want to ask me any questions about 3.3, the lesson? All right, what we're going to do then is we're going to work on the review for lesson 3.3. I had some groups in period 3 yesterday working the wrong problems. So I don't know where you're at with the lesson 3.3 in the book. So that's why we're going to do the review in the teams. And please, the first problem is not hard. What they're doing on the first problem is they're giving you the graph, and all you're having to do is draw the y sub 2 through the graph and stating how many solutions there are. So you are not, even though this is a graphing calculator problem, you don't need the graphing calculator. They did the graph for you. All you're doing is drawing the horizontal line through the y-axis on the 3 different equations. Okay, last call. Anybody want to ask me about anything? Okay, we are going to report back today because there are going to be some issues on this. And so class is over at 10:45. So we're going to actually meet back in the Math Wizard teams at 10:15. All right, so 10:15. I'm going to report back to WebEx. So 10:15, you're going to report back to this meeting. Okay, in the Math Wizard teams, you're going to try to work as many of the problems on this review for 3.3 as possible. Okay, and these assignments are due next week. Lesson 3.3 is due on Tuesday, and this review is due on Wednesday. All right, I'll see you back in the teams. I'll be taking attendance in there, so don't be late. All right. All right. Did you guys make it back?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, on problems 1 and 2, don't make this harder than what it is, okay? What they're doing, they're giving you the graph of f of x. You don't even need the graphing calculator. And the reason why is because in each of the 3 problems, if you add, on the first one, add 7 to both sides. The second one, you add 9 to both sides. And on the third one, you add 11 to both sides. Those are horizontal lines that you're going to put under y sub 2 if you were using the calculator. So the line y equals 7 looks like that. The line y equals 9 looks like that. And the graph y equals 11 looks like that. And the quadratic is the same in all the problems. So mainly on the first one, you're saying there's 2 real solutions. In the second problem, there's 1 real solution. And the third problem, there's no real solutions. And they ask you to explain. So you would say something like the points of intersection determine the number of real solutions, right? Because remember before when they asked for the solutions, we looked at the x coordinates. Now, let me turn this light off because there's a bunch of glare. On problem number 2, you have a graph that looks like that. So the question is, does this graph go up forever or does it just stop there at 2?
It goes on forever because of the arrows.
That's right. So I don't care what they do with the graph. If they do something like that, that goes up forever. And on some standardized tests, you'll see this with no arrows. Well, if they draw a graph that goes to the end of the paper like that, those have arrows. So that's just a flaw in the graphing calculators. If you see the graph go and hit the edges, those have arrows. Now, if the graph goes halfway and doesn't have arrows like this, that means it stops. So if it has arrows, it goes up forever. If it goes off the graph, it goes up forever. If it stops like that with no arrows, then it stops. All right, the next thing I want to address is problem number 4. So on problem number 4, which a lot of teams got through, you have x squared plus x minus 30 equals 0. And they ask you to solve by completing the square. So this is not a perfect square trinomial. So you would want to add 30 to both sides and you're taking half of 1. Do not change it to a decimal. Because changing this to a decimal could cause you to get further and further away from the correct answer as you're rounding. And we want exact answers. So you're not ever working with decimals unless you're working with a real life problem. So half of 1 is 1/2. And when you square it, 1 squared is 1 and 2 squared is 4. Don't forget to square the top and the bottom. So you're going to add 1/4 to both sides. And that's going to cause this binomial to be x plus 1/2 quantity squared. And then what you have to do is get a common denominator. And most of you did this right in the teams. You got 120 over 4 plus 1/4 is 121 over 4. So I'm going to stop this, but when you take the square root of both sides, make sure you bring that radical all the way down. So you get x plus 1/2 equals, both of those are perfect squares. So you get plus or minus 11 halves. And I'll let you finish it. I did put the key in the answers in Google Classroom. So the key is in there.
Could you put the camera down, Miss Bush, please?
Do you guys, anybody want to ask me about this before I erase it? So your problem should look exactly like this. It shouldn't look like very different from this. That's why when I ask you in the teams to state your steps, that's because your steps should pretty much look the same.
Why do you square x plus 1/2?
Well, remember the trinomial? X plus 1/2 quantity squared means x plus 1/2 times x plus 1/2. And when you FOIL that, doesn't that give you x squared plus 2 over 2 is 1x plus 1/4? So isn't the binomial square equal to the trinomial when you FOIL it?
Oh, okay.
You get it?
Yeah.
So we have this perfect square trinomial that we created. And because we're balancing the equation, we're not changing the problem, we're just manipulating the problem. This trinomial can be written as a binomial square. And I just proved to you that when you multiply it out, see how it equals the trinomial? So these are equivalent. This trinomial is equal to that binomial square. Okay, any other questions you want to ask me about this problem? Toddy, can you mute yourself, please? Any questions about this problem? Okay. The next problem I want to look at, just the beginning of it, is I want to look at problem number 5. So it says solve by completing the square. So what do you notice about this problem?
You can divide everything by 3.
Yeah. And before, well, there's a few things you can do. You can multiply everything through by a -1, or you can divide everything by a +3, or you can divide by a -3. Now, I don't recommend doing too many things at once since you guys are kind of new at this. So you can show one step, but I'm going to show 2 steps. So I'm going to get rid of those negatives by multiplying by a -1. And then I'm going to divide everything by 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3. So you realize that this problem is way easier than this, right? Because you simplified it. All right, I have one more comment. And it's on problem number 6. So a lot of you didn't get to number 6, but I just want to talk about it. It's really weird. I'm wiping the board off, but it doesn't dry. It's like a rag that doesn't dry. It's really weird. Do you notice anything about this problem? Nobody notices anything about this problem.
You can divide by 4?
Can't divide this one by 4.
Did I already have trinomial?
Yeah. Who's saying that? Eddie, good job.
Yeah.
He's right. It's already a perfect square trinomial. So why create one? You already have one. Because isn't x minus 4 times x minus 4, x squared minus 8x plus 16? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't have to go create one because you already have one. So save yourself a bunch of work by recognizing that this already is a perfect square trinomial. All right, now, that's all I want to say. Do you guys have any questions for me? Last call. Any questions for me? All right. Well, class is over at 10:45, so you have a little over 15 minutes to continue working on this review. So we will not report back now. You'll go back to the Math Wizard teams, and you can close this tab out for WebEx. I will be taking attendance again. So I'll see you back in the teams. We're just continuing on with this review, trying to work as many problems as possible. Make sure that, excuse me, make sure you ask me questions if you have any. Okay, so I'll see you back in the Math Wizard teams. Class is over at 10:45.